first. Right. Yeah, so you know a little bit about me, and then I will talk a little bit about Kobben, where I work, and also then it will, I guess, become clear why uh, I want to be on places like this as well. And then we can kind of go into the topic of today. Yeah, so Stian Broen is my name. I'm from Oslo, where I also live now, and I'm 42 years old. I did a master's degree in physics from the University in Tromsø, and after that, I started to work at Kongsberg Maritime. I guess it's called Kongsberg Discovery or something like that nowadays. I worked as an R&D engineer there for 4 years, working with multi-beam echo sounders, so like seabed mapping technology. I was writing software for processing data there as well. And then after 4 years there, I was actually a great place to work. But I wanted to kind of do a little bit, I started to become interested in like, being an entrepreneur and things like that. So I started my own company 2012, Broen Tech. So, which is actually where I've been spending most of my career this far. I was working there as like the CEO, and I guess also a working software developer products or many things for yeah 11 years, I guess 12 almost in total. And we were at the most we were 14 employees there, and we were focusing on cloud-based AI systems for hydropower production. That was kind of our core business. So we had like a product, we called it Tide, which was about like connecting to sensor data from power plants, and we analyzed that and tried to discover anomalies and things like that. And we went into like a strategic partnership with another company called Captiva in 2020, I guess. And we worked with them for 4 years, and it all ended up basically in them acquiring the company. It was kind of like a 2 year process that just ended up with them buying all the shares. And we kind of, they wanted to kind of continue with our technology. Uh, and a little bit in a way that weren't kind of fully compatible what we wanted to do. So we ended up quitting there in 2024. And that's when I started to work as the CTO at Kobben, where I work today. And I really enjoy that. So Kobben, a few words about Kobben. It's a company. It's owned by, I guess, lots of other companies around here. And it's and also SIVA, which is kind of the governmental initiative for supporting like startup incubators and competence clusters and things like that. And the core business in Kobben is to have a startup incubator, which is why naturally SIVA is one of the owners. And but there are other branches of Kobben too. There is an investment company, so we are in like early phase investors in startups, and we have also Electronic Hosts. It's kind of like a daughter company as well under Kobben. That is like brancheforening. Not sure what the English term for that is, but it's like a collection of companies and kind of an umbrella organization where we are organizing things like teams for various disciplines within the common interests of the tech companies around the area. And then there is also Kobben Consulting. That's actually a quite new consultancy firm where I end up spending most of my time there. I then kind of take responsibility for developing software products. And actually, the Kobben incubator, it used to go under the name Silesia. And with my own company, I was actually the second member into that incubator with my own company, Broen Tech, which is kind of why it feels kind of natural for me to actually come back here after being an entrepreneur myself to kind of help out. I basically done a lot of mistakes during my time as a founder and CEO, and now I just use that experience to kind of guide and help other startups. Also, but in particular regarding the technology and software development and architecture, things like that. So that was a little bit about kind of background. And me and Veralia, we kind of been having these arrangements for. It started like as something else, I guess. We started with having like an AI seminar. This was at the first one was like the one we had in Hönefoss, I think.
Yes, I remember. So it was a whole day of AI seminar.
Yeah.
It was very good.
Yeah, it was. I think it was. It was a great thing to organize that because, of course, we are also learning a lot like that. And we had like guest lectures and things like that. So we did not like the full seminar a couple of times. And then that was kind of when I was also looking at Broen Tech. So I brought my colleagues and we had a data scientist and he was doing like a lecture, and we had also some other lecturers as well from some of my clients, customers. And then we just end up a little bit like this, where I come and basically I'm free to talk about a topic. I propose a topic for Veralia, and we agree to do that. So last year I was talking about like language models and like the attention mechanism that is kind of central for how language models work. I was going like a little bit into the math and like the linear algebra of it. And I was also talking a little bit about RAG, like retrieval augmented generation. I was planning on talking about like agentic AI today. But I changed my mind, so it's not going to be that. As I understand, you get some good lectures on that already. So it's no need for me to kind of be repeating like things that are already into the academic program.
Was here because the lecturer for agentics Tuesday got sick.
Oh,
So they speak.
bad luck. So I should have talked about that. But I think like today's lecture is going to be perhaps even more interesting, I hope. And it's going to be related to agentic AI because I'm going to try something new. I didn't try that before till today. I will actually not have an academic lecture. Instead, I will sit there and I will actually work with something like the way I normally work every day, using products that's like have agentic AI at their core. And hopefully I will show you how you also can kind of get almost like superpowers if you use these products yourself. And it's something like, I think, a few words about that. I believe like these days is very interesting. Like we're living in really, really interesting days. And I'm not sure how long that's going to last. We'll see. So because I think there's kind of now a window of opportunity where I believe there's going to be more tech startups that is going to come way further than what is normal with way less money. And that is because of the available tools that we have nowadays. And also, it's kind of natural because the venture capital markets nowadays kind of almost like concentrate on foundational model providers. So they're kind of like, the days where there was kind of growth at all costs is gone. It's super hard now to get a lot of money, a lot of funding into like your startup because it seems like the money is more funneled into the foundational model providers. And then, of course, I'm talking about OpenAI, I'm talking about Google, Anthropic, Meta, XAI, the large ones. And they are competing against each other, of course. And that makes the prices and the quality of their products be like, I think, like almost like unnaturally good for the users. I don't really understand how exactly when I use like generative AI, that is like good business for whoever provides that model to me because it's so expensive to run the inference processes. It's super energy consuming, and not to mention like all the compute that went into training the models. But this is the way things are nowadays. That it's the large foundational model providers that they just I think they believe that they just cannot afford to lose the race. So they put a lot of money into like further improving the models of their products, their value proposition. They're hitting against each other. And this is actually also why all the money kind of are funneled into those processes actually around the world and less money for startups. But then again, we get to use these tools that they're producing. So startups kind of, okay, less money, but now we kind of like don't need all that money anymore. Almost feels like that because we can now access the tools that these vendors are making for us. I hope that process is continuing. At least for now, there's like a window of opportunity, I think, because they're so powerful. Um, yeah, and I want to kind of, I guess, teach you like how to get the most out of it, so you can get extremely far with making products, and not only like simple web pages, things like that. No, actually more sophisticated and advanced applications as well. And I want to ask, have anyone here played like the original Doom, like the PC game? Raise your hands. Yeah, a couple of guys. One of my favorite games, I think, is super awesome. I played that when I was kind of, I don't know, 14 years, like 30 years ago, something like that. And I think like that there's great analogy in that game uh, to like how software development is nowadays. So it used to be like you're progressing like in Doom, like the game, and you run into like a new weapon, for instance, like the rocket launcher, which is like very powerful, and you can get further and you get that find that weapon. And that can be like a little bit like discovering like container technologies in software development. Yeah. I mean, finally figure out how Docker works, and yeah, that's an awesome weapon, and you can more progress further, so on. So I think like it's almost like progressing in that game feels sometimes a little bit like progressing in that pure game. But then, of course, there's a massive shift in the whole discipline of software development. So, which is we're talking about like post ChatGPT era and pre ChatGPT era. So, like when generative AI like enters the stage, uh, it feels less like you get like a new weapon in Doom, and more like you get a set of cheat codes instead. Like the original Doom had some cheat codes. You could type, like, I think IDDQD, and you would kind of would be immortal. You couldn't die. And then there was the other code was IDQFA, I think, and you would get like all the weapons with limited ammo. That's more like how it feels to use these tools. And but it also kind of takes away some of the fun, right? It's like cheating. But anyway, like the way I'm thinking is, and I think everybody have to think like that, is that you are competing with someone, and your competitors they have access to the same tools. So you can like it or not, but if you want to stay competitive, you have to also get on board with these tools. So it's like you're competing with other Doom players on racing through the game, and all of a sudden you learn that they're free to access all the cheat codes, and you're competing with them. So what do you do? You're a little bit forced to also use the cheat codes, but it really feels like cheating because I guess like I'm used to writing my own code, so nowadays I think that's almost like prehistoric thing to do. It's not. It's good to learn how to do it, but in jobs, you probably won't end up actually writing your. That's not anymore. I think maybe some company that kind of a little bit started with some stuff. I don't know, but it feels to me now a little bit like prehistoric to actually write my own software. So here's how I wanted to do this, and this is actually it's totally experimental. I don't know how far we're gonna get, and I don't even know if that's going to feel like you're actually learning something. I just don't know, but I want to try it because potentially it's super great, and it's also motivated by the fact that at Kobben, my employer, and we want to have more startups. So the idea is that if I teach how to make good products super quick with great quality, maybe some of you guys at some point want to make a startup. That would be awesome. And by the way, for student entrepreneurship, there is now something called Sprout here at the university. And these guys are going to help you if you want to have thoughts like this. So I totally recommend talking with them. We are collaborating with them. So it means like when your process gets a little bit further, it becomes more natural to kind of onboard the Kobben ecosystem. And this is where I work, and I will help you with not only like making sure you can make your products, but also like your advice on product strategies and technology. So I have made like a fictional startup, and that's what we're going to work at here and now with that startup. I will first I will explain the idea. So this startup, it's not a great idea. I don't think I would actually do it, but it's something that involves, you know, the interesting discipline. So it's good learning case. So the name of the uh, startup is ChatFlip, and it's a mobile phone based chatting application with so where you can chat with your friends in groups or one on one. But it's there's an AI which kind of participates in the background of the discussions and will uh, you know, propose something to the users based on how they understand like the semantics and the context of this ongoing discussions. And I think this idea is not even unique because it's I think Meta are already doing things like this. So it's not a good or even unique idea, but it would have to involve, I think, a lot of the disciplines that are essential for actual great ideas. So if you kind of feel like you're comfortable with all things you need to understand in order to make this crappy little app, then you can also do great stuff. So I've been just preparing this project a little bit. My original plan was to kind of also sit here for really blank and nothing, and then build that app up here, like live. But I ended up cheating a little bit. So I did like spend a couple of days just to get a little bit project up and running. I it's going to just be on GitHub. So anyone that would like to kind of get access to all source code and maybe even like participate in it, try some stuff yourself. Just I guess send me an email if you want that. My email is stian@kobben.no, and I will just invite you into the. So let me just because you can see my screen here, I will just uh, show you some things. We will dive into some tools. I will show you a little bit how I use them, and also a little bit disclaimer. This is not the only way to do things the way I'm going to show. This is just how I'm working. And even the way I'm working is also constantly changing because all the tools are changing as well. And there are like it's almost like the toughest thing nowadays is to kind of be able to keep track on everything that's going on. It's difficult because there are kind of a new AI revolution every other week. It feels like. So it could be that there are already some parts that I'm going to show you is kind of outdated already, or there may even be like a better way. So I'm not saying you have to do it like this. I'm just saying this is how I do it, and if you find another better way, also, you know. Um, I will show you just a little bit. Okay. So basically, oh, that was the wrong folder. I really like Google workspaces. So I kind of like always use that. I like at Kobben we have like the Microsoft suite of things, so that's also okay. But I have like the Google workspaces on the side because everything is like really integrated into each other. And the way like the disk, Google Drive, and the document handling, all of those things work feels very much like a seamless user experience. And I think like that's for me like the foundational things when starting and building anything at all. You kind of need to have like the basic core business applications. So
It's free as well.
it's free. You get some more stuff if you pay for it, and it's not expensive. Um, it's even possible, I think, to get like even cheaper if you're a student. I think possibly like a lot of these products have like student programs, so we can get stuff cheaper. Anyway, Google also have a fantastic AI model. So that zoom bar is kind of a little bit annoying, I guess. But so I use that. Hmm?
If you go to here, you can put in lines. This it moves a bit.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and Gemini is like I guess everyone recognizes uh, this user experience. This is basically ChatGPT, right? It's just their take on it. It functions exactly the same. It's you choose your model up here, and there's basically only two models worth mentioning. There's some extra tools you can access from prompt input area. Um, yeah, and that's it. So basically, I started to just work by, noting down a few things, just writing some stuff. So the first part of like venturing into a project like this is to actually write your own stuff first. And usually, at least for me, the only point where I actually write my own text is like initially. So I'm basically just here writing down what I just told you, that this is like going to be a mobile first thing, which has blended into its language model that attempts to kind of assist and guide the users, making them like uh, augmenting their discussion capabilities. So hoping that they would experience it like a little bit like chatting in, for instance, ChatGPT or Gemini, only they aren't talking to a model directly, but to another human, and the model will just sit there and kind of understand the things. So, yeah, so that I have a tech stack in mind for building this. This is the tech stack is, I think, pretty good. It's like a wouldn't call it like a magic silver bullet, but it's definitely covers most of the stuff for web applications. I'm not sure if this is things you're actually learning or not. And it's not, but it's like I said, it's just an example thing. You could find a totally different tech stack here, and that would be fine as well. I like React for frontend. I actually learned to write my own React applications before ChatGPT, and I actually had like a failed one-man band startup as well, where I wrote my own tech stack. That's also on GitHub, by the way, so you can go there and check. Where I was using React, and now there's this thing called Next.js. I think is awesome. So I want to use that for front end. I also want to like be upfront with my plan to use WebSocket for streaming messages. That's basically just an interface way between backend and front end to stream messages. Like for a chat application, it feels more like natural to like be streaming text messages up and down. But of course, there will be a REST interface there too. So I want to also mention that I want to use a zoo stand for local state storage. And that's just for like making the browser remember some things, some data to manage like the front end data in a way there. PostgreSQL, that's almost always a pretty safe choice because it's one of the best quality databases out there, and it's ideal for a little bit more sophisticated applications, perhaps because it has more advanced features, and it also has like a plugin based system where you can augment the database with things like time series. There's something called timescale DB. That's a PostgreSQL plugin. And there's vector database. You can plug it in. So you're gonna come all the way with that database. But for easier things, there's also things like MySQL, which is I guess the more popular choice because it's so fast to get up and running with that. And it's also very high quality and great. And so that's a popular choice as well. I want to use Redis for PubSub or publish subscribe. Because there are messages here and there are going to be discussion rooms and we want to push and pull messages, in the backend. After messages has like been on WebSockets, they're going to be on a message bus because I can use that also at the same time as a job queue, like to request some job being done by some process. And it's also at the same time like an in-memory database. So if I want to speed up queries, things like that, I can cache requests in the backend using Redis. So it's like Redis is also like I choose one technology and I can do many things. So it's to kind of a little bit reduce the number of items in the list. I want to use Python for writing all backend applications for obvious reasons. And there's going to be like a service here, which is sometimes going to come alive and look at like a discussion. Try to figure out if this discussion is based on participants that could be in the use of some assistance and then assist them. So that would kind of take the form, I believe, a little bit like an agentic AI service. So I forgot also actually to mention one thing. I also have my own startup that I'm working with on the spare time, which is something I use to just keep myself updated, basically. But that's also using agentic AI and I have some. I think LangGraph is a toolkit, which is a good choice for writing agentic AI applications in Python. And it's very popular, and I want to do that. I choose that here for like the job process, for the lack of a better name. Also, will be like a backend service. I will want to use Python too, and I want to use Fast API for like the interface. It is this like a web server Python that is. I like this the most. I also have been using like Django and other things, but Fast API is, yeah, it's fast, and it's makes your code kind of look great, and it makes it document itself automatically on the OpenAPI standard, which is awesome. And it's also a very popular choice. And yeah, it's easier to get up and running. You're not getting a lot of boilerplate stuff. Like for Django, oh yeah, you're using Django, then I will just create lots of files and folders for you. And I don't like that. And with Fast API doesn't do that. I want to use an ORM. It's an object relational model for interfacing with the database asynchronously. So there's a good library for that. It's called SQL Alchemy. I'm going to use that. And for IAM, or Identity and Access Management, which is like things like sign up, log in, authenticating the users, things like that. I want to use Google Firebase. Could use like other things here too. We used to use something called Keycloak in Broen, which is, I think, also great. I believe that's also open source. But again, there's many good choices here. So basically, just write down the stuff we've been talking about. And then, of course, just throwing it into the language model to make it write something, which is what I did. Here. So I just threw it in there. This is the same text. And I ask kind of it to make a feasibility study, make like market research, I guess. Like see if there's a good business model for B2C, business to consumer, like an execution plan. How like along a timeline do you recommend that we do stuff? How would you go about selling it, earning money, sales strategy, legal consideration? It does involve AI, which is in the gray area for some legal stuff. Go to market and the technology, ask all the questions because I wanted to make a pitch deck, you can do that. And lo and behold, it does exactly that. Here are the pitch deck. Just exactly like I wanted it to. I attempted here to make like a flow chart, but because I wasn't more specific on how exactly I wanted it to do that, it made something super strange, What's this? Post seg fui database? So yeah. I think it tried to render like an image. And it shouldn't. If I asked it to use like a mermaid or something, it would like make that as code, which would be something you could render using a mermaid engine, and it would look better. But it doesn't matter. Because I thought it could be like useful to take a little bit look at the flow chart of the tech stack. But for this discussion, I think like we talked through it. We don't really need it. So I will show you one other awesome tool. So I wanted to kind of start on this end here because this is probably, I guess, where you're already somewhat familiar because of ChatGPT. Everybody uses ChatGPT. And I assume like everyone here also uses ChatGPT or something similar. But there are other cool products we can make on our startup journey. So another product I really like is something called Gamma.app. I pay for this, so I'm not sure if there, but I believe there's a free version too, but just limits you. I use it for just generating slides instead of PowerPoint, basically. So the free version is just like there's an upper limit for the amount of slides you can have, something like this. It's quite useful in like the free version as well. So what I do is I just take all the text then that I got here, the slide deck text basically. I just throw it in here. No, let it just do its thing. And the result then is something like this. You can tell it to ask like a certain model for image generation. You can ask it to not generate images and instead search on the web. And there is actually also a tool where you can like be a human in the loop to change the text, and it's a full-blown editor and things like that. But the first proposal it's going to have based on your slide text is quite good. So this is something like, I mean, I if I bring this to like an investor, it's going to okay, I think it's quite good. So they even like have proposed here, as you can see, like the business model, freemium to growth, explaining a little bit exactly what the extra features you're going to get if you pay for it. And execution roadmap, developing the minimum viable products. Oh, one thing which I noticed is that the foundational model are trained on historical data, and most of that data comes from the pre-chat GPT era. And so it doesn't fully take into its context that we're now actually going to supercharge the development processes. So now it kind of says that we're going to spend half a year on MVP. No. We're going to spend a couple of days maybe instead. And like there's probably like a funding plan here involving some pitching to some VC. No. VCs, they are more interested in putting their money in some other stuff anyway. So we're just going to be greedy about all the awesome tools we're going to use instead of that. So just be a little bit mindful that it kind of has historical data, and like it's better at knowing the traditional SaaS, software as a service track for startups than like a modern AI native supercharged startup like we're doing here. Blah, blah, blah. Legal framework, regulatory compliance, things like that. Of course, it's going to be important because this is perhaps the first thing the investor's going to ask is, is there any traps in here? Go-to-market strategy. So it's just like to show you that Gamma.app, pretty cool. By the way, I am not getting paid by any of these vendors. So this is just, I basically looked for products like this by essentially using ChatGPT. And ChatGPT just finds products I need for me. And how do you know which products are there? Just imagine like the best possible tool you can imagine for a specific task. And there probably already is like an AI tool for it. You just have to find it and discover it. So Gamma.app is one of the things. It's nice. And there's also something else I wanted to show you. That's called Luca. And Luca is for making brand. We have a brand, of course. It's called ChatFlip, and it's a cool chat software as a service startup. And you can find like the logo, branding stuff like that by just prompting here, like browsing around, telling it what you like. I'll just show my already made branding for my own startup. It's called Aina, by the way. And just the short story, it's about like sustainability reporting and automating that using agentic AI. So as you can see here, the important thing is that I have a brand kit, and I can use that brand kit to make lots of stuff. And there is a brand guideline that I can use, like basically as a styling guide for the look and feel of the app itself as well. So it's something that back in the days you would kind of want to have like a, where's the brand guide? This should be here. Brand kit. Yeah. Whatever. You when you start this journey, you end up having like a brand kit. You would give that to your designer back in the days. Nowadays, you are also the designer, so but you're leaning into AI instead. So this is a tool. It's cool. You can use it. It has a free version of it. So okay, so now we have some stuff. We have like a pitch deck. We have like a brand. You can of course, you can take the material from the brand here to put that into your pitch deck, and it gives more like a branded experience when your audience is looking at your pitch deck. So I would do that, of course. Next thing I want to show is I guess Figma. Are you familiar with that, Figma? No? No?
So it's very, but it's a user experience. Very nice.
Yeah. Yes.
Some of you might use it in the budget PC, moving software. Just so you know.
So it's like a designer tool where you kind of build an interactive user experience using like the normal flow would be that you make like a low fidelity wireframes, kind of describing where all the buttons and screens and the flow of the user experience. Then you go from there to high fidelity design, which would then contain the wireframes of how you actually want the app to look. That implements kind of the design and the user experience. And of course, Figma is a this is a huge company. I think even they have IPO'd in the US. So this is huge. It's yeah, and they of course have their own AI thing. So you don't have to know how to use Figma anymore. You just prompt like any other tool. You just prompt. You describe to Figma what you want your design to look like. And of course, you can bring into it the brand guidelines, things like that, and just tell it, no, I want like more higher contrasts, and no, I want better accessibility because of clumsy fingers, so increase the button sizes, things like that. So I did that. This is a part of my cheating. I was going to do that live here and today, but this is just my chat. Most of this is not stuff I wrote. It's just the under the hood agentic AI, answering me and reasoning thoughts and things like that. And it made like this design, which is like the process is like, I want to have something like this. And they propose something and you come, oh, no, I wish it looked a little bit more like that. Or I like this, but this is not useful. You can take that away. And that is kind of the way it feels to use it. Just very human level, like almost like they're sitting actually a design expert right next to you and you're just talking to that person. That's how it feels like to use this thing. So there would be like I chose like a dark theme just out of personal preference. I think that just is what looks the best. And I can log in, and now there's just some pre-populated mock data here. I can see like my friends, whether or not they're online. I can choose them and start a new chat with them. And I can see my recent chats here that I can click to and go there and continue the discussions. I can add a friend. I can this is maybe the thing that I think definitely would need more design work. Buttons too small, not very ideal use of available space. Some things. But it's your user profile. Yeah. Choose profile image. And so the actual user experience is like super familiar, like just a normal chat interface, just like Messenger. And you just write, I, I, or, and you just go like that, the you will get an answer maybe. Yeah. Great. But no, and then all of a sudden, like the agent here comes alive and starts to like indicate, hey, I want to say something now. And you could click on it. You get like a proposal based on the semantics of the chat. It proposes something, and it could be like it could be like something emotional, like it sounds like your discussion partner is sad, you should propose to go and grab a cup of coffee together, or something like that. Or like, yeah, I see you're planning a trip, so there's actually like sales on tickets on Wizz Air. You should go there. It could be like things like that, and you would kind of like swipe left or right, like to access or approve, or left, I guess, accept, and you would bring like the proposal of the AI into the chat. That's a whole thing. So it's probably not a successful business, but definitely involves some disciplines to make this work. We would have to kind of solve a lot of technical stuff. And I believe that if we do that, kind of enable is a very enabling to be able to actually implement this app. You can also make a lot of other actually great apps. So the that's the design part. How much time do we have, by the way? It's to 10 o'clock. Okay. Yeah, I will not even come close to finishing this up. But that's not the plan either. I was just going to show you things and then see how it goes. So that's Figma. Next would be like kind of okay, we have like we can do like a pitching session for some investors. We have like a brand. We have some design mockups, and maybe now start to come close to the phase where you start to implement some stuff. So there are many ways to do that. And by the way, one of the startups I'm working with is called InvestVisor. So the founder of InvestVisor is a former student here. It's called Didrik Lysvold. He's become, I guess, very, very good at the vibe coding, which is the new term where you just generate the code instead of writing it. And he's also going to do a course on that for students. In particular, the product Lovable. It's a product called Lovable. It's one of the new Swedish unicorn companies. They have like a fantastic product where you can very quickly like generate the pages. Actually, as he can show quite sophisticated user experiences, I could definitely go for Lovable here to generate this user experience. But that's not what I want to do. So I'm just going to give you that heads up. For web coding with Lovable, go seek out Didrik Lusvold's also guest lecture. I don't know anything more about it, so have you heard about that? No. Okay. Sure. I will figure out when this is going to happen. I recommend that. It's so powerful thing to know how to do that, and you see that, oh shit, I can now make all these things. So this is great. So I'm not. I will. I don't use that myself because I I'm used to kind of like owning the tech stack, and some of these vibe coding tools are kind of choosing the tech stack for you. There's but like the choices aren't bad, but like for example, Lovable, it uses React, which is I guess all of them are doing that. In particular, they're using like a React framework called Vite, or it's I don't actually know how to pronounce it. It's VITE dot JS, I think Vite, which is oh, it's good. It's one of the most popular things. It's super quick, but it's not my. I wouldn't choose. It's not what I want to choose. So this means like, oh, can't use Lovable. It's also like if you want to hook that up to some backend, it's also choosing for you something called Supabase. And by all means, Supabase is a fantastic product because it's so low threshold getting to get some really good things running kind of product. It's a database. It's actually PostgreSQL on the hood, but it comes with it's a managed service, of course. So you just hook up to some URL. There it is. It has like an automatic backend and endpoints to write and read and date and all the database things. It has built-in IAM or identity access management. It has built-in many other things too. It's great. So if that kind of gives you what you want, it lets you build products super fast. So that's super base. So me being like more like I guess a little bit more traditional. It's like yeah, Postgres cool. I want to use that, but I don't want someone else to use that on my behalf. I use that myself, so I choose differently. But I guess Didrik's going to talk also about Supabase. So what I do is I use Visual Studio good old fashioned thing. And this is open source IDE for yeah, working with software. Cool. It's free for everyone. It's also open source. And yeah, I guess some of you probably familiar with it. Definitely not the only idea you can use, but I use it because it's super lightweight and it features like it has a nice user experience and it's very popular, so it's also well maintained. So the tool I'm going to show you for coding is Cloud Code. And that's like something like Lovable, but it's something that runs in your terminal. And that might sound a little bit like, oh, I'm not so familiar with working at the shell level, terminal. But don't worry, that's not what you will actually end up doing. This is just something that will actually run in the terminal. That's almost all you need to know. So I'll be working with that. And of course, the very first thing I did was to make a project or actually an organization in GitHub. And I called it Chat Flip Experimental. So this is the thing I would like anyone interested, I would like invite you in here. And I made the repository called main. I will explain to you exactly why I'd start with that. And it has a little bit to do with how we're actually planning on. Okay, that's not very nice reading file. Yeah, how we're actually using Cloud Code, because it's an agentic generative AI that writes code for you. Yeah, that's what it is. And to me, that means that I feel like more like my role is when I was managing a team, Broentech, managing other developers and other teams. And I would kind of more take the role as a project manager, maybe. That's what I feel more like is the role you're taking with modern software development. You are, per definition, the software developer, but more like in a managing way, since you're actually not writing the software yourself, but letting something else write it for you, and that it's like an agentic AI solution. I think of that like as a team. So when I have that, I want to organize it as well. That's what main is. So my main repository basically just contains some documents. I start by like just taking in the markdown version of the pitch deck. Here it is, same thing that we used to generate that. Remember from Claude. General description is basically my prompt, and I have some things that is partly written by me, partly generated, and there are some files I use for providing my preferences as a software developer to the agentic AI system. I write some general rules I want them to follow, and it's some of them kind of feels like very basic, like avoid assumptions, because generative AI do that all the time. It can even assume a name of a member of a class. You know, it's crazy. You don't assume that. You actually just go and read that. You know, so it's something actually useful to tell it. You know, don't assume the naming of members of a class. Instead, go and figure out exactly what that name is. I want to follow test-driven development, or TDD. And it's not because I really love to work like that. We tried it in Broentech in various ways, but this is a great way for agentic AI to be working using test-driven development. In short, it just means, like the agentic AI already knows what it means, but it means like you write the test for whatever you're going to make first, and then you develop it. So it means like the development is kind of driven by the tests that you write for new functionality. This is a it's super effective for the agentic AI to work like that. So I just want to enforce that way of working. Yeah. And I want to, since I'm now kind of the project manager, I want to work with sprints. That means like you just make chunks of the whole development process that are kind of limited in scope and well defined, and it has a start and it has a stop. That's the short description for how to work with sprints. And I have a file which explains to the agentic AI exactly how I want sprints to be organized. And tools, very important as well when using agentic AI and generative AI to write code for you. They have, and this is actually a very important aspect of any agentic AI product, is that they are using tools. So the most important tool will be almost always a language model. And it means like agentic AI, it isn't just another language model type, like many people assume that and think that. It's not true at all. Agentic AI is actually very fast, very small, often software that runs directly on your computer, typically, or on your phone. That's the agentic AI. But it has AI models as tools. And not only has it language models as tools, and in Cloud Code, of course, those models gonna be Sonnet and Opus, which are the two foundation models that they provide for coding. But there's also something called MCP. I will explain that because it's important. It stands for Model Context Protocol. It's a new standard proposed by Anthropic for how to make servers that functions as tools for AI systems. So that's now standardized. And when that happened, that happened, everybody just scrambled and started to provide their own MCP servers for their stuff. For example, there's an MCP server for Slack. There's an MCP server for almost any like product. And it means that agentic AI systems can then use those products for you on your behalf. This is exactly what Cloud Code is going to do. It's going to use MCP servers for helping it in situations that I will describe for like when to use the tools. For example, there's a very useful MCP server called Context 7. The Context 7 MCP server is basically just a collection of documentation, and it's maintained and it's up to date, like curated. So it means that it would prefer to check there instead of its own knowledge coming from training on how the C++ programming language is working, or like the documentation for Python and things like that. It will use that for getting fresh, up to date documentation. And there's something called Playwright. I was struggling a little bit to get this work actually yesterday evening, but it's almost like magic, because you can, let's say you're working with front end and your generative AI is just doing its thing. And it's just writing code, right? So you have to somehow run that code. That's still it used to be your responsibility, but you can even do that now. You can run any program internally, and it can use Playwright to open up for itself a temporary browser, check out all the content, how thing looks like, and extract information from that. So it's like you provide a set of eyes also, can look at its own UI that it's developing and figuring out if this is according to the requirements you gave it. Incredibly powerful. There's even like a Figma MCP server. Figma, that we have it here still, like containing our app, has its own MCP server. This was going to be the main thing I was going to talk about today. However, and like many of the things in this space, it's just open like in beta, and it has kind of limited functionality. And the unfortunate limitation currently on Figma MCP is that it only works for like when you are working with a design kind of file. I was using Make for because I don't know how to use Figma, so I kind of use the AI version of that. But that's not exposed on the MCP server, so it doesn't interact the way I wanted it to. I figured that out yesterday. So that doesn't work. But it's most likely gonna work at some point. And by the way, this AI generated design also has code already. So we're kind of a little bit saved by that here, because of course we can just here, I can click download, I get the zip file, I download that, I take all the code and just splash it into a new folder, and there it is. And then I, of course, need to work that into my own tech stack. That's actually what I did yesterday. Um, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because I was talking about the project management of it, right? Main. So I will get back to talking a little bit more about the project management repository. It contains, based on all my input files, a README file. This is generated. It has, like, you'll see that in all my projects, there's a dump file and a notepad file. I use dump for throwing in logs, and I use notepad is actually where I write my stuff. And there are like a Docker Compose file, which is like a virtualization kind of way to start the services that I'm depending on. Sorry. And there are some scripts that I made, or actually AI made, based on my request to initialize and start all the things I need for developing. But the main trick here is that in this repository, I'm going to include all my other repositories as submodules. And submodules, it's a Git thing. You can have, it's a little bit like, I heard you like repositories, so we put the repository in your repository so you can code while you code. That's a short explanation. It's a repository inside of a repository. But that makes sense for us because our main repository is project management, and it's only natural that it is allowed to also access the other repositories. So for example, you see here's the front end, which I've added as a submodule. Because as a part of my sprint execution plan, I'm going to make my project management part create a sprint into the submodules with instructions on what to do. So it means like you have like a leader folder or repository on the top that's kind of managing everything below it. So I think this is a natural way to work with organizing your tech so that it is good suited for working with especially Claude. So let's get a little bit into Claude now. Claude Code. I use, as you probably already seen, I'm using Windows, but all the things are running on a Linux environment. I don't recommend, like, I wouldn't, I guess I like pain and suffering. And so I choose Windows. But if you're fine with working on Ubuntu or even OS X, it makes a little bit these things slightly easier because now I have to run something called Linux for Windows and to get my bash. And Cloud Code is for Linux too. So that might have changed yesterday for all I know. But when I started using it, it was only for Linux. So I'm using like the Windows for Linux shell. So let me show you. I have this shell here. Let me show you what that looks like. So Claude is a CLI, a command level interface. And it has some functions. You get like an introduction for some of the baseline functions by just writing Claude help. So one of my favorite arguments to put into Claude is Doesn't sound great, but it's called dangerously skip permissions. So any cybersecurity engineer would immediately react on that. So I guess I shouldn't say use it. So I'm saying don't use it, but I'm going to use it anyway. So if I start Claude using that argument, I'll explain what it means. And it's not that dangerous. It just means that it's not going to ask for permission every single time it wants to do something. That's it. And Claude is just giving it that name to just remove any kind of responsibility out from their space over to you. But it just means like it now, if it wants to make a new file because it wants to write a new code, doesn't ask you explicitly every single time. Because I was starting off like that, and yes, yes. You just end up like that. You aren't really practically going to be reading every single line of code it generates. That's not feasible. You need to find more clever ways for managing the code quality than that. It helps to understand code. It does. So by all means learn how to code. But you aren't actually going to be working very close with the code in practice for work. So now we're in Cloud. Here we can write directly, in the prompt, ask it to do things related to the repository here. I like to write in a file instead. Like that's why I have the notepad.txt file. It's just like because feels a little bit safer. I don't know. Probably just a personal preference. I like to write in there. And then I can reference any file I want from the prompt. So I usually just write my whole thing in notepad.txt, the file, and just reference that file from the prompt. And that's how it goes. So that's conceptually how like CLI-based agentic AI products work. And there are ways, like for example, Cursor. It's a variant of Visual Code that has, instead of the terminal, it's kind of has a built-in user experience, like a plugin, rather, where you do the prompting. I have tried. It's actually very good. But it's Cloud Code. It's just this is the I think the leader, at least on like the semi-professional level and going up. This is commonly regarded as the best tool like for generative AI. So, but Cursor easier to get going maybe. So also very good. There's also Gemini CLI. Not that good yet. I tried it a little bit. It's Cloud Code is superior. And of course, the models from Anthropic, like Opus and Sonnet, also regarded as the best models for code, which is naturally, of course, built into Cloud Code. Yeah, so I want to now just show you that I have already made like these services start dev services. It's basically just a little bit laziness from me. I just want to have a script that just actually runs Docker Compose for me. So you can do something like this, start a start dev services. Scripts. Horrible English. Doesn't matter. So just for showing you that Cloud Code can run things inside of it. It has like one of the tools that it does have is like its own terminals and its own like bash shells that it can actually start under the hood. You're not going to see them. They're going to be there, and it can use them to run scripts, figure out stuff. Now it ran the script, and it just shows us the output from running that. It even like picks up if there are some problems. There are some problems here, and it probably then will just look at those problems for me automatically. And when it's done, I can see that my Docker containers should be, I think. Yes. I forgot something super important. Docker. We need Docker. Yeah. That's something you just install it. You need it. Usually takes a few seconds and then Docker is open. So that needs to be there, of course. Otherwise, it's not going to be able to do much. And if I want to now, like it's doing its thing, and I think like, oh shit, it's I actually want to get back. You can double hit the escape, and now there aren't much to go back to, but it's to the previous state from before I gave this command. I can always like interrupt it, go back. Now we're back there. And I guess this time it's gonna be successful at starting, all the Docker stuff. It's missing requests. This is like a dependency that is a Python program that it should have installed. Didn't have installed. So it's going to install that and include that in its requirements. Yeah, actually, it is in its own internal Python tutorial. And we can kind of tag along now. So you see here, it did start something. It has start Redis. Sorry, yeah, it did start Redis. It also started the Redis commander. It's just a tool for working with Redis. It started Postgres database, started AdMiner. It's also just like a administration tool for database. Some other things as well, MailHog for like making it easier to work with email and during development. And it fixed some things, and it's totally happy with its own performance here. Perfect. All development services are running successfully. Blah blah blah. Okay, great. So that was kind of like very shortly how you go about working with cloud code. I want to also get back to my sub repository. And as you noticed, I have that in my own separate instance of Visual Code. And I'm going to let Cloud Code also have its own separate instance running for that sub repository, which is going to be totally focused on the front end. Doesn't even see like the top level folder, which is where the project management happens. So in here is like any software development team this is what they would see. And project management's going back, see one level above. It has the same folder, but it also kind of involves the higher scopes of the project itself. So this team or repo more like isolated into dealing only with front-end stuff. So we're going to do the same. We're going to start Claude. By the way, I should have said that earlier, but by all means, interrupt me and ask questions whenever you feel like it. There is something. I start Claude here as well. I also cheated a little bit by already setting up like the Next.js project. I did that yesterday. And you can see here, I have a folder called chat flip Figma generated. This is just a copy of all the files that we generated in Figma. And there's like the chat flip mobile. This is actually my project. So I probably will just at some point delete the whole Figma generated files because now we're taking over from Figma and into Cloud Code instead. Chat Flip Mobile, this is the Next.js project. You'll see, like, for those used to working with React, this has normal things. It's the package.json shows like all the dependencies, like the packages and things like that. And like any React application, you just use npm to start it. So I'm just going to start npm. So basically, what I also did yesterday, I just told Cloud Code that here is proposal for an implementation of my app generated by Figma, but I want to have a Next.js project. So you must initialize a Next.js project and then work your way into the now legacy code to implement the same things. I didn't actually do any of the porting. I just asked Cloud Code to do that. And when you start the npm server, it you can access that server from the browser, usually just localhost. And so I have no idea if it is something you're going to learn during your studies, but the browser itself is actually a super important development tool. It has so much in it that you're going to need when you do web development. So, for instance, like I have now, I could like put it to show like as a mobile phone. You can choose between some usual suspects there, flip it. It has a console here, super important because you're going to check for errors, things like that, errors that are coming out from rendering the app in the browser. So this is what you would probably bring with you back to Cloud and say, hey, there's a problem, check it out and solve it. Also, there's the inspection tool. So if I want to go in and inspect like a specific element here, like this button, for instance, I can do that. I can go in and see, and this is the generated HTML code, not necessarily what you actually wrote yourself in the React code, but all of this is all super useful. Yeah, you can see like how you see the layout of all the elements that are in the DOM. I'm not going to teach you how to use the browser developer. I just very quickly, that was just like showing you that this is the app. Like, yeah. Next thing, I mentioned that we were going to use Firebase for identity and access management. So to actually do that, and this it is quite easy. You know, there is not a lot of things you need to do. Kind of have a Firebase app up and running. This is a Google product. I already made that. It's like even if you're not sure exactly what to do, just use like for instance Claude and write, "Hey, I want to use Firebase. Just please provide step-by-step instructions on what I need to do to set up Firebase. I need it as identity access management." I do it all the time. So, but I've used Firebase a lot earlier as well. So in here we have like set up login with Google. So it means that basically it uses like an auth2 flow for user authentication, where Google is the provider, the trust element, so to speak. So I just gone in here and said, hey, I want to enable this. And then you need to install just a Firebase library in your front end or in your backend, depending on where you want to authenticate from. And then you get like a little snippet of code that just contains, some API keys and a secret and a little bit like that. That needs proper management, by the way. Secrets, don't mess with that and avoid bringing that into your GitHub, blah, blah, blah. Cybersecurity stuff. But when that's done and it's super fast, it's like 10 minutes, you're up and running. You're going to have like, you can log in. I'll show you. I choose this user and I'm actually like in the app now. I'm logged in, really, like any other login using like industry standard auth2 flow. So it doesn't have a backend though. It means that I receive a token from the Google servers that kind of says, yeah, this user is it's okay. You can trust it. So this is the user who is actually the one that claims to own this email address. So this is what we looked at earlier from Figma, the same app, and a little bit of the same user experience. Literally, I did all of this yesterday and a little bit the day before. All of it. And I can also from here, this is the actual app running. I can choose a profile image. You see the updated up here. But it doesn't have any mock data in it. I just asked it to just remove all the mock data. I don't want it to pretend that it has friends and historical chats and so on. But it's here, so it's something we could like continue working our way into. Okay, cool. So then we have IAM, we have a basic tech stack description, infrastructure. We have a way for organizing using like a project management sub-modules kind of way. And we have a working, like a good starting point for a web app using Next.js. That's it's already like a pretty good start. But let's see, and I only have like 8 minutes now, so it's not going to be. I was planning on actually together with you start working with the backend, just to show how that would be. And I will begin. I'll just see how far we can come. Going back to the tech stack, we already talked about we were going to use Python. We're going to use Fast API as the web server, and we're going to use like an ORM for interacting with the database, blah, blah, blah. So I think like maybe a reasonable way to do that would be to kind of make maybe a new sprint and call it like back-end introduction. So let's try. We can go to our project management and we could like, yeah, by the way, we are on the branch already here. I'm thinking like for this repository, I think, and then maybe it's just personal preference, I think I would like to just stay at the main Git branch, but I could choose to make a feature branch and then have like a merging later on when I was done. I'm just going to make it a little bit easier. So, but I did make a script here called make new sprint. And what that will do is going to go into a sub repository and set up all the management structure I need for executing that new sprint. And I can ask Flow Code to do that for me, of course, because it can run scripts. And I will firstly go to the front end, like ironically, since we're going to focus on back end, I will go here. I will show you that we are also here on the main branch, but I will make a feature branch. Git checkout minus branch. Let's call it back again introduction. Did you have Git in yet? Yeah.
We have it.
Okay, good. So that kind of makes sense then, I hope, what I'm doing here. I make a feature branch. This is my local Git. There's going to also be an upstream feature branch. I will push this feature branch into, and then I'll make a pull request. The pull request will kind of be a process that will take the upstream feature branch into the main feature branch. And I will update main locally, make a new notification feature branch, and this is the way we will work with Git. Now that we are in that feature branch, I want to go back to my project management Claude and ask it to make a new script in Kobben called backend. Was it introduction? Yeah. I could be explicit here and tell it to use make sprint, but it kind of would already kind of know that and use that. Yeah. And that's what it's going to do is it's going to build the structure, but not so much the actual content. I'll show you. So this is what I use when I work with a sprint. I have in all involved sub modules or repositories. I have a folder called sprints, and in there I'll keep all my sprint, not the source code, only the management files. So now there's a folder here called backend introduction, and that folder has this content. It has a checkpoints folder, and all folders has a README file that explains the purpose of this folder and what the files that we expect to get here. It has a guidance folder. This is where I will put, like, if I have some special best practices documents that I want it to be focusing on and working, I will put them in there. Messages. Because the teams are going to be messaging each other back and forth. So the back end is going to write messages to the front end team. The front end is going to write messages to the back end team. And I'll just be sitting on top there managing the whole communication flow. So the structure is for supporting that. So the front-end team would write their messages just into the front-end folder here. Resources, yeah, just icons, logo, files, whatever, scripts, just convenience scripts, nothing to do with the actual code, just like we just did, like the start sprints. It's just a convenience thing. Tests is going to be where we want to put all our tests. Remember, we were talking about Playwright. That's generating lots of files, and we want to have that in a specific folder. And we have these. These are kind of a little bit important because the sprint requirements is basically what we're planning doing. So for the front end, the sprint requirement is going to be the requirement as seen from the project and what they expect. But it won't tell them exactly how to do it, because they should lean into the expertise of the front-end team for that. But the next phase is going to be to ask the front-end team to write the technical specification for sprints. And it's all just to-dos here. So now I can get back to the front end. Yeah, we're running out of time. But I'll tell you just shortly what I will do. So I'll ask the front end team to generate the technical descriptions. And then I'll ask the project lead to kind of review that and affirm that this looks okay and it's compatible with the customer requirements. Then it would kind of get the go signal. And then it will follow just the technical requirements to just implement all the stuff, all the steps. This is where the code generative AI is actually doing its thing. And it's going to run into something. It's going to say, hey, I don't have a backend now to talk to. So, but it's informed that they have colleagues. They have a backend team waiting for their instructions. So it will write a message for them. And that's just a file. I'm going to copy that file over to the other sub-repository and just say, hey, the front-end team has a message for you. You need to do some things. It will do that. It will write some tests. It will write like a message in the end saying that, hey, I'm done now. You can start testing. That's the message. I'll copy that to the front, back to the front team and say, oh, the backend team is done. Cool. I can now start implementing the client-side HTTP integration stuff. And that's how this works. So for me, this has been proven to be very, very efficient. And not only efficient, but it's also almost like limitless in how complex you can build something. Really, really sophisticated, advanced stuff following this procedure. It's way more, you don't stand a chance doing something like this using Lovable or any of the other vibe coding tools, but they are also great but for, I think, other purposes. For building sophisticated, like software as a service, microservices-based software tools, this procedure is great for. And it mimics the way we used to do things manually back in the days. But now it's fully automated. You have automatic teams. Yeah. So yeah, I really should be having at least a couple of days, I feel, to really get down to it. This is all I guess there was time for, but I hope it was enough to just give you the general idea that this is fully available. It's remarkably cheap, compared to what you're actually getting. And I feel like it's almost like it's almost feels like magic. You can almost do whatever you want, and it's going to be super fast. It's going to have incredibly high quality, and it can be products like faster than ever before. So I hope you now see that you can build stuff super quick, and that maybe some of you at some point think that it would be cool to make a startup. There's an event next Monday called Powering the Future, where I will be talking about how the tech whole world scene has changed, how it is today. And is going to be kind of talking about a little bit which kind of startups do we want to see? So what should you be doing? What should you be inventing and making? And what problems should you aim at solving? So that's going to be the what to do part. This is the how to do it part. So I recommend showing up there. And maybe the combination of the content for today and the content for Monday is enough to spark some startups. And I'm there. You can talk to me. I have my office, fortunately spoken, straight over there at Kobben. So you need some guidance, and you need some more anything really related to entrepreneurships and startups. Talk to me. I'll help you out. Okay. Thank you.